Commander Taiwan Park stood on the bridge of the ESS Horizon, the first human ship to travel beyond the solar system. He straightened his uniform as the ship's AI announced the arrival of the alien delegation. His heart beat faster, but his face remained calm. This meeting would change human history forever. The doors slid open. 7 different alien species walked in, each stranger than the last. The leader, Delegate Morrow, moved forward with grace. Its skin shimmered with colors that shifted like oil on water. It stood nearly 7 feet tall with 4 arms and eyes that seemed to see everything at once. "Commander Park of Earth, we welcome you to the stars," Morrow said, its voice translated through the ship's systems. "The Concordat has watched your planet's development with interest." Taiwan bowed slightly. "On behalf of humanity, I thank you for this welcome." The other aliens studied the humans with curious eyes. One resembled a giant insect with compound eyes. Another looked almost like a walking tree. A third floated above the ground, its body semi-transparent. "Your species has achieved faster than light travel remarkably quickly," said Morrow. "Most species spend thousands of years developing before reaching this point. You have done it in mere centuries." Something in Morrow's tone made Taiwan uneasy. Was it concern? Worry? "Necessity drives innovation," Taiwan replied. "Earth faces challenges that pushed us to the stars." "Indeed," Morrow said, "though we must admit surprise at encountering a species so young." Taiwan maintained his diplomatic smile. "Age brings wisdom, but youth brings innovation." The aliens exchanged glances. One made a sound that might have been laughter. Taiwan felt like a child at the adults' table. "Please, allow us to show you our vessel," Morrow said, gesturing toward the viewing window. Outside, the alien ship hung against the stars. It was beautiful, sleek, and elegant, with curves that seemed impossible. Despite carrying representatives from 7 species, it was barely larger than Earth's naval destroyers. "How does something so small travel between stars?" asked Lieutenant Hannah Cho, the ship's engineer. One of the aliens, a blue-skinned being with 6 fingers on each hand, answered. "Energy efficiency. Space folding. Why build big when small works better?" Taiwan noticed how the aliens seemed amused by the size and crude design of the human ship. The ESA Horizon was humanity's pride. A mile-long vessel that had taken 20 years to build. Yet these aliens treated it like an antique. "We would be honored if you joined us for a meal," Taiwan said, directing the delegation toward the ship's main hall. The reception was carefully planned. Earth's finest foods, music, and art were on display. The aliens sampled everything politely, though their different biologies meant most couldn't actually eat human food. While the diplomats talked, Science Officer Jae-yun Kim moved quietly through the crowd. Her job was to learn everything possible about these new species. She listened to conversations, observed behaviors, and secretly scanned the aliens when possible. An hour into the reception, Jae-yun approached Commander Park, her face tense. "Commander, may I speak with you privately?" she asked. They stepped into a quiet corner where the ship's noise dampeners ensured privacy. "What have you found?" Taiwan asked. Jae-yun showed him her tablet. "Our long-range scanners detected something strange 3 systems away. It appears to be some kind of spatial anomaly, a tear in space-time that's moving." "Moving? How is that possible?" "I don't know, but it's consuming everything in its path. And here's the concerning part. I overheard 2 of the delegates discussing it. They called it the Devourer. They're already planning evacuation routes for nearby systems." Taiwan frowned. "They know about this threat, but didn't mention it." "Yes, and from what I gathered, this isn't the first time it's happened. They spoke of previous encounters." "Did they mention defenses? Ways to stop it?" Jae-yun shook her head. "That's what worried me. They only discussed evacuation protocols. No defense strategies at all." Taiwan's expression darkened. "Evacuation, not defense. They don't believe defense is possible. From what I understood, this anomaly has destroyed several systems before. The Concordat's approach is always to run. Taiwan looked back at the alien delegation. Their easy confidence now seemed like something else. Resignation. They had accepted that some threats couldn't be fought. How long until this anomaly reaches populated systems? He asked. At its current speed, it will hit the Proxima Centauri colonies in 8 months, Earth in 14. Taiwan took a deep breath. Humanity had just joined the galactic community, and already they faced extinction. The advanced aliens, with all their technology and thousands of years of experience, had no solution except to flee. Don't share this with the crew yet, he told Jiayun. Let's confirm our data first. He rejoined the reception, seeing the aliens with new eyes. Their ships were fast and efficient, perfect for running away. Humans had built differently, big, sturdy vessels designed to endure harsh conditions. While the aliens laughed and shared stories, Taiwan's mind was already racing ahead. If the greatest civilizations in the galaxy couldn't stop this threat, what chance did humanity have? Yet something deep inside refused to accept defeat. Humans had faced extinction-level threats before, from ice ages to nuclear war, and had survived through innovation and determination. As the reception continued, Taiwan made a decision. He would not tell Earth to prepare for evacuation. Instead, he would suggest something the aliens had never considered: standing their ground. The night ended with promises of cultural exchange and cooperation, but as the alien delegation returned to their ship, Taiwan knew the real work was just beginning. Humanity's place in the galaxy might depend not on how well they could fit in, but on how differently they could think. Jiayun joined him at the viewing window as they watched the alien ship depart. "What are we going to do?" she asked quietly. Taiwan's jaw set firmly. What humans have always done when faced with impossible odds. We're going to find a way to survive. Not by running, but by solving the problem. But if these advanced species couldn't find a solution, then we'll have to think of something they haven't, Taiwan said. Something so crazy, so uniquely human, that it just might work. Suho Kang tried to calm his nervous breathing as he waited to address the Galactic Council. 6 months had passed since the first contact with the Concordat. In that time, humanity had learned much about their new galactic neighbors and about the approaching threat. The council chamber was enormous, built to accommodate delegates from over 300 species. Suho felt small standing on the central platform, surrounded by tiered seating that rose high above him. Some aliens floated in special atmospheric bubbles. Others required cooling units or heating elements. The diversity was overwhelming. "The human delegate may now address the council," announced the speaker, a crystalline being whose body pulsed with light when it spoke. Suho activated his presentation. A holographic model of the galaxy appeared, with a red pulsing spot marking the anomaly's location. "Honored representatives," Suho began, "what you see is the spatial anomaly first detected 6 months ago. Since then, it has consumed the uninhabited Auric system." He touched a control, and the simulation showed a star system disappearing into the red mass. The council members murmured. Most already knew about the anomaly, but seeing it displayed so plainly was disturbing. Based on its current trajectory and speed, the gravitational disruption will reach the Proxima Centauri colonies within 8 months, and Earth within 14, Suho explained. "Our simulations indicate conventional shields will fail. Nothing we have can withstand this force." An alien with multiple eye stalks spoke up. "This is why the evacuation protocols were established. We have relocated populations 17 times in our history when facing such phenomena. The Concordat has always survived by strategic withdrawal," agreed another delegate. "We will assist your colonies with relocation." Suho shook his head. "Earth has a population of 9 billion. Proxima Centauri has 2 billion more. Your fastest evacuation ships could move perhaps 30 million people in the time we have. Where would the rest go?" This created uncomfortable silence. The council representatives began debating among themselves, proposing various evacuation schedules and resource allocation plans. Some suggested priority systems for determining which humans would be saved. Others discussed how to preserve human cultural artifacts. None suggested stopping the anomaly itself. For 3 hours, Suho listened as they talked about his species' inevitable displacement. Finally, he'd had enough. "Esteemed delegates," Suho interrupted, raising his voice. The chamber quieted. "While we appreciate your offers of assistance, humanity proposes another solution." He changed the holographic display to show Ceres, the largest object in Earth's asteroid belt. "We propose to convert Ceres, our largest dwarf planet, into a mobile shield platform. We will install massive fusion drives, reinforcing the planetary structure, and position it to intercept the anomaly." Silence fell across the chamber. Then suddenly, the room erupted with dismissive chatter. "Impossible," shouted one delegate. "Primitive thinking," called another. A tall, blue-skinned alien stood. "Planet moving is theoretical at best. The energy requirements alone would drain your entire system's resources. The structural stresses would tear the planet apart," added another. Suho tried to respond, but the noise was too great. The speaker called for order, its crystalline body flashing bright pulses. At that moment, Admiral Min Ji-yoon stood up from the human delegation's seating area. Her decorated uniform gleamed under the chamber lights. Though in her 60s, she stood straight and strong, her presence immediately commanding attention. "While you debate," she said, her voice carrying across the now quiet chamber, "we'll begin. Earth has already approved Project Aegis." "That's not possible," said Delegate Morrow. "Your world government couldn't have approved such a plan without our knowledge." Minji smiled. "Our unified response to the anomaly threat was voted on 3 months ago. Construction began the next day." She touched her wrist device, and a holographic display changed to show real-time footage from Ceres. Enormous construction ships swarmed around the dwarf planet. Sections of the surface had been cleared, and massive foundation structures were being built. "This is madness," said one of the council members. "You risk destroying yourselves before the anomaly even reaches you." "Perhaps," Minji acknowledged, "but humans prefer to fight, even against impossible odds, rather than accept defeat." "This council cannot sanction such a dangerous endeavor," the speaker declared. "We are not asking for sanction," Minji replied calmly, "only for information that might help us succeed. If you have knowledge about similar attempts, or about the nature of these anomalies, we would welcome your assistance." Back on Earth, Mining Director Hansol Lee stood in the massive control center buried 2 miles beneath the Himalayas. Around him, engineers from every nation worked at their stations, coordinating the largest project in human history. "Director, the first fusion drive cluster has reached Ceres orbit," reported his assistant. "Installation teams are ready to begin anchoring procedures." Hansol nodded. He hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night in months. "Tell them to proceed." "What about the core drilling teams?" "They've reached the required depth. The reinforcement materials are being inserted now." On the main screen, live feeds showed thousands of workers in spacesuits crawling over Ceres' surface like ants. Massive ships lowered city-sized engine components into position. Deeper inside, other teams were converting Ceres' core into what would become the command center of this planet ship. Hansol's communicator beeped. It was a message from Suho. "Council reaction negative. Continuing as planned." Hansol wasn't surprised. The Concordat species had evolved to run from threats, not face them head-on. It was a successful strategy that had kept them alive for millennia. But it wasn't the human way. "Sir," one of the engineers called out, "we're detecting unusual readings from the anomaly. It appears to be accelerating." Hansol felt his stomach tighten. New estimated arrival time. If this acceleration continues, Proxima Centauri in 6 months, not 8. Hansol took a deep breath. "Send word to all teams. We need to work faster." As he looked at the massive display showing their progress, Hansol knew they were attempting the impossible. Converting a dwarf planet into a spaceship had never been done. The physics were theoretical, the engineering challenges enormous. But as the ancient saying went, necessity was the mother of invention, and humanity had never faced a greater necessity. Director, his assistant said quietly, the Concordat has just issued a formal statement advising all human colonies to prepare for evacuation. They believe our project will fail. Hansol looked at the teams working around him. The best minds from every country, working together as never before. Send them our thanks for their concern, he said, and remind them that when this works, the galaxy will never be the same again. The destruction of the Tellurian colony happened without warning. One moment, the thriving settlement of 16 million humans and their alien neighbors existed. The next, it was gone, swallowed by the expanding anomaly that scientists had named the Devourer. Emergency ships evacuated only a fraction of the population. 14 million souls were lost in an instant. Across human space, the news spread like wildfire. Panic gripped the colonies. On Earth, people looked to the skies with new fear. The Devourer was coming, and it was moving faster than anyone had predicted. In his office beneath the rebuilt United Nations building in New Geneva, President Jun Ho Choi watched the reports with a grim expression. He was a tall man with silver hair and eyes that showed the weight of his responsibility. How much time do we have now? He asked his science advisor. 4 months until it reaches Proxima Centauri, 10 until Earth. Jun Ho nodded slowly. And Project Aegis. Director Lee reports they're ahead of schedule, but it's still theoretical. No one knows if it will work. Jun Ho stared at the holographic display, showing the approaching anomaly. The Concordat had been right about one thing. Running might be safer, but humanity had committed to another path. Send a message to the Concordat leadership, he said finally. Tell them, we invite your representatives to Ceres Station. He paused, then added, that's all. No explanation. Let's see if curiosity still drives them. 3 days later, a Concordat diplomatic vessel approached the orbit of Ceres. Inside, 7 delegates from the most powerful alien civilizations prepared to witness what they assumed would be humanity's admission of failure. The humans are stubborn, noted Delegate San, whose species resembled feathered reptiles. But reality cannot be denied. Their project is doomed. Yet they continue, said Morrow, the lead delegate. There is something admirable in their persistence. The shuttle docked with the newly constructed habitat dome that now crowned Ceres' North Pole. The dome was massive, nearly a mile across, and contained a breathable atmosphere, living quarters, and command facilities. As the delegates stepped through the airlock, they were greeted by engineer Yi Jin Ba. She was young for such responsibility, only 34, but had proven herself the most innovative structural engineer on Earth. Welcome to Ceres Station, she said with a slight bow. Thank you for accepting our invitation. The aliens followed her through the bustling habitat. Humans in various uniforms rushed past, too busy to stare at the visitors. The station hummed with activity and purpose. Your species seems determined, observed Morrow. We are, Yi Jin replied simply. This way to the observation deck. She led them to a large room with floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over Ceres' curved surface. What the delegates saw made them freeze in place. Hundreds of massive fusion engines, each the size of a small city, were being installed across Ceres' surface. Construction ships moved like insects over the landscape, lowering the massive engines into prepared cradles. Energy conduits glowed as they were tested. Worker teams in spacesuits swarmed everywhere. Impossible, whispered Delegate Morrow, moving closer to the window. The scale was beyond anything the Concordat had attempted in thousands of years. Not since the ancient days of their civilizations had they manipulated matter on such a scale. We've reworked the dwarf planet's internal structure, Yi Jin explained, bringing up a holographic cross-section. The core now houses control systems. The mantle has been reinforced and honeycombed with acceleration dampeners. The cross-section showed how Ceres had been transformed from a simple dwarf planet to an engineered structure. The natural rock had been reinforced with artificial materials. The core, once simply ice and rock, now contained a massive computer center and power distribution hub. But the energy requirements, began a blue-skinned delegate, its eyes wide with disbelief, are substantial, Yi Jin acknowledged with a small smile. But not impossible. She touched a control panel, and a new hologram appeared showing Earth and the other planets of the solar system. We've redirected 20% of Earth's total energy production to this project. Additionally, we've constructed new fusion plants on Mercury, harvesting solar energy at unprecedented levels. The gas mining stations on Jupiter have tripled production. The delegates exchanged glances. The energy being described was beyond what most civilizations produced in total. "You've committed your entire system's resources to this single project?" asked Xan. "Yes," Yi Jin said simply, "because it's worth it. And if it fails, then we will have tried our best," she replied, "which is all any species can do." That evening, after a tour of the facility and meetings with project leaders, the delegates gathered on a special viewing platform. Director Hansol Lee joined them, his tired face showing the strain of the past months. "We're about to test fire the first engine cluster," he explained. 5 engines working in harmony. It's just a fraction of the total, but it will demonstrate the concept. Warning alarms sounded throughout the station. The lights dimmed as power was diverted to the test. "Beginning countdown," announced an automated voice. 10, 9, 8. The delegates watched in silence. 3, 2, 1. Ignition. On the surface below, 5 massive fusion engines roared to life simultaneously. Blue-white fire erupted from their exhaust ports, illuminating Ceres with artificial daylight. The ground trembled slightly, but the habitat's dampeners kept the vibration manageable. The test lasted only 30 seconds, but in that brief time, instruments recorded a minute shift in Ceres' orbit, proof that even this small cluster could move the dwarf planet. When the engines shut down, silence filled the observation deck. The delegates stared at the data readouts, then at each other. "This is beyond anything we've attempted in millennia," Morrow finally said. "Perhaps we've forgotten what it means to truly challenge the impossible." Hansol looked at the alien with tired eyes. "My people have a saying, necessity reveals what is possible. We needed a solution, so we found one." "The test was successful?" asked one of the delegates. "Yes," Hansol confirmed. "But it's only the beginning. We need all engines operational within 3 months to intercept the anomaly before it reaches Proxima Centauri." Later, as the delegates prepared to return to their ship, Morrow approached Yi Jin privately. "Engineer Ba, I must confess something. We came here expecting to witness failure, to finally convince humanity to accept evacuation." Yi Jin nodded. "I know. Instead, you've shown us something remarkable, something we had deemed impossible." "Does that mean the Concordat will help us?" Yi Jin asked. Morrow looked back at the viewport, where Ceres' transformed surface was visible. "I cannot speak for the entire Concordat, but I believe some of us may have much to learn from your species." As the alien delegation departed, Hansol joined Yi Jin at the window. "Did we convince them?" she asked. "Perhaps," he replied, "but that wasn't the main purpose of their visit." "No." Hansol smiled tiredly. "The main purpose was to remind ourselves that what we're doing might actually work." The alarms blared through Ceres Station for the 3rd time that week. Red emergency lights flashed as engineers rushed to shut down the failing power grid. In the main control room, Chief Engineer Do Hyun Seo slammed his fist against the console. "Grid collapse in sectors 7 through 15, shouted a technician. "Temperature spike in the main conduits." "Shut it down," Do Hyun ordered. "Full system reset." Around them, screens showed real-time data from the failed test. The power distribution network had overloaded again, melting connections and damaging critical systems. With each failure, precious time was lost. The Devourer was now just 2 months from Proxima Centauri. When the emergency was contained, Du Hyun called a meeting of the full engineering team. For the first time, this included several Concordat scientists who had volunteered to help after witnessing the test firing. The meeting room was tense. Humans and aliens sat together, exhausted from weeks of non-stop work. Some of the alien volunteers required special breathing apparatus to survive in the human standard atmosphere. "We're missing something fundamental," Du Hyun said, his voice tired but determined. "The engines work perfectly in small clusters, but when we try to link more than 20%, the power distribution network fails." He displayed the latest simulation showing the structural weakness. Additionally, our models show that even if we solve the power problem, the acceleration forces will tear Ceres apart before we reach effective speed. The room fell silent. After months of work, billions spent, and the hopes of humanity riding on their success, they had hit a wall that seemed impossible to break through. An alien engineer named Roxy floated slightly above her seat. Her species evolved in low gravity and found Earth-normal conditions uncomfortable. Her skin shimmered with patterns that reflected her emotions, currently showing troubled blues and grays. "I have been reluctant to suggest this," Roxy said finally, "but there may be another approach." All eyes turned to her. "Our civilizations abandoned planetary engineering millennia ago," she continued. "We found it too resource-intensive, too slow. Small, efficient ships served our needs better." She paused, her skin shifting to a deeper blue. "But this wasn't always the case. In our ancient history, my species moved moons to create habitats. The Exorelians terraformed gas giants. The techniques were lost because they became unnecessary." Do Hyun leaned forward. "Are you saying your people once did what we're trying to do?" "Not exactly the same, but similar challenges were overcome," Roxy replied. "The knowledge exists in our ancient archives. I've requested access from the Concordat Council." 3 days later, Roxy returned with data crystals containing technical information not accessed in thousands of years. The combined human-alien team began studying the ancient methods. Meanwhile, in the fuel systems lab, Director Naeyoung Rim worked on a different problem. The fusion engines required precise fuel mixtures that were proving difficult to maintain at scale. She had been working for 30 hours straight when a Concordat engineer named Trell joined her. Trell belonged to a species that resembled humanoid cats, with fur covering his body and large yellow eyes that could see energy patterns invisible to humans. He had been watching Naeyoung's work with curiosity. "Your approach is interesting," he said. "You're trying to make each engine work independently, then link them together." Naeyoung nodded tiredly. "That's the standard approach. Each engine needs its own fuel system." Trell made a sound that might have been a laugh. "That's how humans think. Everything must be self-sufficient. My people think differently. We see connections first, individuals second." He moved to her workstation and began adjusting the model. What if the engines aren't separate units, but parts of a single system? What if the fuel flows between them, balancing automatically based on need? Naeyoung watched as he redesigned the fuel distribution system. Instead of treating each engine as independent, his design created a web-like network where fuel and energy could flow wherever needed. "This would never work," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "The feedback loops alone would stabilize the system," Trell finished. "Like a living body distributes blood based on need." They worked together for days, combining Naeyoung's detailed knowledge of fusion mechanics with Trell's holistic approach. When they finally presented their design to Do Hyun, he immediately ordered a test implementation. 2 weeks later, a test of 30 engines using the new distribution system ran flawlessly for 5 minutes. "It works," Do Hyun said in disbelief. "Of course it works," Trell replied. "You humans approach problems differently. You see impossibilities as challenges rather than warnings. But sometimes you miss the connections between things. With the power distribution problem solved, The team turned to structural integrity. Using the ancient Concordat knowledge, they'd redesigned Ceres' reinforcement structures, creating a flexible lattice throughout the dwarf planet that could absorb and distribute acceleration forces. More alien engineers arrived as word spread of the project's progress. Species that had been enemies for centuries worked side by side, contributing their unique perspectives to the massive undertaking. 1 month before the anomaly would reach Proxima Centauri, Project Aegis entered its final phase. The completed engines covered nearly 40% of Ceres' surface. Deep within, the command center was fully operational, staffed by human and alien crew. On launch day, President Jun-Ho Choi arrived to witness the historic moment. Billions across human space watched via broadcast. Even the Concordat Council had suspended its regular business to observe. Director Han-Sol Lee gave the final briefing. "We've calculated an intercept course that will place Ceres between the anomaly and Proxima Centauri. If successful, the dwarf planet will act as a shield, absorbing the anomaly's energy while our scientific team attempts to collapse it." "And if it fails?" asked President Choi. "Then Proxima Centauri falls," Han-Sol replied simply. "And we try again with another approach before the anomaly reaches Earth." The countdown began. In the engine control room, Na-young and Trell monitored the fuel systems together. On the bridge, Do-hyun and Roxy watched structural integrity readings. Throughout Ceres Station, humans and aliens worked in perfect coordination. 10 seconds to full ignition," announced the automated system. Na-young looked at Trell. "Thank you for your help." "Thank you for teaching us to dream again," he replied. 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Across Ceres' surface, hundreds of massive fusion engines fired simultaneously. Blue-white fire erupted from the dwarf planet, visible from Earth as a new star in the sky. The ground trembled but held together as acceleration slowly built. In space, the impossible happened. A dwarf planet moved out of its natural orbit, guided by human determination and alien wisdom. The living ship, largest vessel ever built by any species, began its ponderous journey toward the waiting anomaly. On the command deck, President Choi watched the readings with amazement. "How fast will we go?" "Not fast by ship standards," Han-Sol answered. "But we'll reach the anomaly with time to spare." As Ceres left the solar system, a message arrived from the Concordat Council. It read simply, "Perhaps we have forgotten what it means to face our fears. May your journey remind us all." The Concordat fleet spread out in a protective formation around Ceres. 50 sleek alien ships, representing 7 advanced civilizations, escorted the massive human vessel toward its target. From a distance, they looked like tiny fish swimming alongside a whale. Inside Ceres' command center, Admiral Min Ji-yoon stood tall despite her exhaustion. For months, she had coordinated this impossible mission. Now, the moment of truth had arrived. The Devourer waited ahead, a swirling darkness that bent light around its edges. "Status report," Minji ordered. "Shields at full capacity," reported the defense officer. "Hull integrity at optimal levels. All stations report ready." On the main screen, the anomaly grew larger. It had already destroyed 2 uninhabited systems and the Tellurian colony. 14 million lives lost. Proxima Centauri would be next if they failed. "Time to intercept," Minji asked. 17 minutes, Admiral. Minji opened a channel to all ships. "This is Admiral Yoon. We are approaching final position. All Concordat vessels should maintain safe distance as previously discussed." Moro's voice came through the speakers. "Acknowledged, Admiral. Our sensors are recording everything. Good luck." Minji looked around the command center. Humans and aliens worked side by side at their stations. Each face showed determination mixed with fear. What they were attempting had never been done before. "Commander Park, is the gravitational tether ready?" she asked. Taiwan, who had been with this mission since first contact, nodded. "Ready, Admiral. The emitters are charged and aligned." The gravitational tether was humanity's secret weapon. Based on technology gleaned from ancient Concordat archives and enhanced by human innovation, it could theoretically grab the edges of the space-time tear and pull them together. As Ceres approached the anomaly, everyone felt the increasing gravitational pull. The giant engines trained to maintain position against the force trying to drag them in. 10 minutes to intercept, announced the navigation officer. Min-ji pressed a button on her chair. Engineering, how are the engines holding? Nayoung's voice came through. Working at 95% capacity, Admiral. We can give you full power for approximately 75 hours before critical systems begin to fail. Let's hope we don't need that long, Min-ji replied. The anomaly filled the view screen now. It was beautiful in a terrifying way. A swirling vortex of dark energy shot through with streaks of blue and purple light. 5 minutes. Min-ji stood and faced her crew. We've trained for this. We've built for this. No matter what happens next, know that you've already accomplished the impossible. The final minutes ticked by intense silence. When the countdown reached 0, Min-ji took a deep breath and gave the order that would either save Proxima Centauri or doom them all. All systems to maximum. Deploy the gravitational tether. Across Ceres' surface, massive emitters activated simultaneously. Invisible beams of focused gravitational energy shot toward the anomaly, connecting with its edges. The entire dwarf planet shuddered as it positioned itself directly in the anomaly's path. The first contact was like hitting a wall. Everyone on board was thrown forward despite safety harnesses. Warning alarms blared throughout the station. Hull integrity at 92%, shouted an officer. Shields holding. The reinforced dwarf planet absorbed the initial impact while the tether equipment embedded in its crust began the delicate process of collapsing the space-time tear. It was like trying to sew a wound in reality itself. We've established tether lock, Ta-1 reported. Beginning closure procedure. On the tactical display, they could see the anomaly's edges slowly being pulled together by the gravitational tether, but the forces involved were enormous. Ceres groaned under the strain. Hull breaches on levels 7 through 12. Someone called out, "Emergency bulkheads engage." Hour after hour passed. The crew worked in shifts, but Min-ji refused to leave the command center. The anomaly fought back against their efforts, pulsing with energy that threatened to tear Ceres apart. At the 48-hour mark, Delegate Morrow contacted them. "Admiral, our sensors indicate your structural integrity is failing. You should consider withdrawal." Min-ji shook her head. "We're committed, Delegate. The procedure is working. We just need more time." By the 60th hour, everyone was running on stimulants and determination. Parts of Ceres had been abandoned as systems failed, but the tether held, and the anomaly was visibly shrinking. "Admiral," said Do-hyun, his voice rough from exhaustion, "I think we're close. The anomaly's energy signature is destabilizing. How much longer?" "Maybe 12 hours, maybe less." Min-ji nodded. "Then we hold." For 72 hours total, Ceres held position against forces that would have shattered conventional vessels instantly. The engines burned continuously, fighting the pull of the anomaly. The hull creaked and groaned. Systems failed and were bypassed. Then suddenly, the readings changed. "Energy levels dropping," called out a science officer. "The anomaly is collapsing." Everyone watched as the dark vortex that had threatened billions of lives began to fold in on itself. The gravitational pull lessened. The strain on Ceres decreased. When the sensors finally indicated the anomaly had fully dissipated, exhausted cheers filled the command center. People hugged each other regardless of species. Some wept openly. Min-ji sank into her chair, allowing herself to feel the full weight of fatigue. "Send word to Earth and Proxima Centauri," she ordered quietly. "The threat is gone." 6 months later, at Concordat headquarters, Earth officially joined the galactic community. The ceremony was held in the Grand Hall, beside a newly constructed monument. a perfect scale model of Ceres. President Jun-Ho Choi signed the formal treaty while billions watched across thousands of worlds. What had begun as a desperate act of survival had transformed humanity's place in the galaxy. High Counselor Vex, the crystalline being who led the Concordat, addressed the gathered representatives. "For too long we have survived by running from threats," Vex said, its body pulsing with multicolored light. "Humanity has taught us an important lesson. There are times when elegance must give way to audacity, when the prudent path is not the right one." After the ceremony, Suho Kang, now Earth's lead representative to the Concordat, traveled to Jupiter to inspect the new projects. In orbit around the gas giant, 3 more dwarf planets were being fitted with drive systems, part of humanity's new planetary defense network. But humans weren't the only ones building now. 2 other Concordat species had begun similar projects, adapting Earth's excessive engineering approach to their own worlds. As Suho observed the construction from his viewport on the station, a Concordat engineer named Zix floated beside him in the zero gravity. Zix's species resembled translucent jellyfish, their thoughts visible as colored patterns within their bodies. "We still don't understand," Zix admitted, tendrils waving gently. "Why build something so large? Our calculations show smaller, specialized vessels would be more efficient." Suho smiled, watching as a massive engine component was lowered into position on one of the dwarf planets. "Because sometimes the universe presents big problems," he said simply. "And humans?" Zix asked, colors swirling with curiosity. "We build bigger solutions." Suho turned to face the alien. "But the most important thing we learned wasn't about engineering. It was about cooperation. Neither humans nor the Concordat could have succeeded alone." Zix's body glowed with understanding. "Perhaps that is why the universe presents such challenges, to bring different minds together." Suho nodded, looking back at the construction. The galaxy was changing. Old boundaries between species were fading. New possibilities were emerging. And somewhere in the void between stars, Ceres continued its slow journey home, a testament to what could be accomplished when the impossible became merely difficult. The end.